I'll never forget the moment I realized I needed my travel insurance. It wasn't even something I thought about until I found myself lying in a hospital bed in Japan, wondering how the hell I got there. One minute, I was hiking up a mountain trail, taking in the breathtaking views of the Japanese countryside, my camera in hand, ready to capture that perfect shot. The next, I was slipping on a rock and falling hard, like really hard. My ankle gave out. I heard a pop. And then I collapsed to the ground, gasping for air, barely able to move. The pain was immediate and intense. For a second, I just stared at the sky, wondering if I was imagining it. But nope, it wasn't a dream. I had twisted my ankle so badly that I couldn't even put weight on it. The trail was quiet, with no one else in sight. It felt like I was miles away from the nearest help. And of course, this wasn't some touristy spot. This was deep in rural Japan. I pulled out my phone, hoping for a signal, and dialed for an ambulance. It was a small miracle that I managed to get through. A few moments later, the emergency crew arrived, and before I knew it, I was in the back of an ambulance, on my way to the nearest hospital. Now, here's where it gets real. I'd heard all the travel horror stories. You know, the ones where someone gets sick or injured while abroad and ends up drowning in medical bills because they didn't have the right coverage. I always thought it'll never happen to me. I'm careful, but here I was. I didn't know the language, I didn't know the system, and most importantly, I had no idea how much the hospital visit was going to cost. I'll admit, I was freaking out. The ambulance ride alone was terrifying. The thought of trying to figure out how to pay for everything, the possible language barriers, the costs. And the whole time, I kept thinking I didn't even check if my travel insurance covered something like this. But then, a weird thing happened. I remembered that a few weeks before I left, I had made a quick decision. Something told me I should look into travel insurance more carefully. So I did, and I signed up for a plan that promised comprehensive coverage, even for medical emergencies like the one I was facing. When I arrived at the hospital, I pulled out my insurance card, and the nurse, despite the language barrier, immediately knew what I was talking about. She handed me some paperwork, and within minutes, I was assigned a translator. I couldn't believe it. This felt like a lifeline. Everything was taken care of. The medical staff was amazing. They got me the care I needed, and they even helped me with the billing process. It wasn't just hospital care, it was human care, you know? It was a huge relief to know that I wouldn't have to pay an astronomical amount out of pocket. The insurance covered everything from the ambulance ride to the x-rays to the medical treatment. The cost of medical care in Japan is no joke. I had no idea how much I was potentially saving, but after I got back home and looked up the costs, it would have been thousands of dollars without insurance. But here's the kicker, I don't think I would have realized just how valuable having the right insurance was if I hadn't been in this situation. Sure, I knew the basics about travel insurance, but it wasn't until I was faced with an emergency that I truly understood its importance. So, if there's one thing I've learned from this, it's that you really can afford to skip out on travel insurance, especially when you're far from home. And the best part? It doesn't need to be expensive or complicated. Now, I always travel with coverage I trust, because you never know when you'll find yourself in a situation like I did. If you're heading to a foreign country and want that peace of mind, check out auras.insure. It's honestly been my lifesaver for moments like this. It's not one of those crazy expensive plans, but I've trusted them for my travels, and I know they've got me covered in case anything goes wrong. Not trying to sell you anything, just genuinely sharing what worked for me when it mattered most. If you want to feel safe and secure while traveling, it's worth checking out. I know I'll be using them on every trip moving forward.